Hello, welcome to day, what is it? 34 of distance learning. Hope you guys are having a great day so far. I just want to go over today's plans. We do have reading, writing, and math today. So for reading, they can choose one 20-minute activity just like usual. And again, I would recommend they read this Tommy Goes to the Caribbean or the Caribbean, never quite sure which it is, or another fiction story. If they've been reading any fiction stories that have a character in other books, so like Pig the Pug or the Pigeon books or Elephant and Piggy that have consistent characters, I'd have them read another one of those today because the writing activity has to do with character traits. So if you've been reading all these Tommy stories, Tommy is in every story. So hopefully your child has grown very familiar with Tommy and maybe some other characters and would know a bit more about what he's like as a character. So read Tommy Goes to the Caribbean or another fiction story, and then have them jump on over here for writing. And again, if they want to go back and have them, if you want to have them read the full 20 minutes or 30 minutes, that's great. But if you want to hop over to writing first while Tommy is fresh on their brains or whatever character they're studying is fresh, please go ahead and do that. For writing today, we've read several books about Tommy or another character, and we are going to be writing about his or her traits with evidence from the series. So with character traits, we've talked a lot about these, but if students need the refresher, it's not how a character is feeling in a story, it's what a character is most like. We described it as what's their personality. If someone were to ask what are they like, what would be your answer? So I'm thinking here, I'm going to use an example of Junie B. Jones. So for Junie B. Jones, I'd write her name here as the character. A trait of hers would be sassy, and my evidence would be, I'm sure in many of the books, she talks back to her parents, right? And then they can do a different character or the same character, list another trait. I would say do 2 or 3 of these. And then have them write it out in a sentence. So for the Junie B. Jones one, I would say Junie B. Jones is sassy period in the story. She talks back to her parents period. And again, this is mostly to practice that capitalization punctuation piece down here. And if they need some guidance or they need some help them out, but they should be pretty good at this on their own. The main goal is that they know what their characters are like throughout most of the story. And if they do need any like a list of character traits, you could Google character traits for them, and there's tons of just little JPEG or PDF images of character traits they could look at for some inspiration. So if your child's feeling stuck on what word to use, have them look at that list. We do that a lot in the classroom. So for math today, we are talking about bar graphs. So watch this video here. I did not have to put in a login. I could just press play, but it does a really good job of explaining how to create a bar graph using data, as well as how to use that bar graph to collect and analyze the data. So which one's the most popular, which one's the least popular, and so on. So for this first activity, they can create their own bar graph using this data, or if they want to come up with a survey question and ask family members, that's fine. It's kind of tricky to ask 10 people, but if they can get pretty close to that, I'm good with that. You want them to have enough data to work with, not just 2 or 3 people. So if they don't have 10 people or close that they could collect data for, this data will be just fine. I will say on this first activity, they will be needing some guidance from you on how to create a bar graph from scratch, like how to get on a piece of paper, draw the x-axis, the y-axis, and this does, again, teach them how to do that, but it's still tricky for them to really understand the whole process. So if they need some help, that's totally fine. I will say the Envision pages do a bit better of a job of kind of easing them into it. So if you have access to this or can print it or have the packet, I would highly recommend this activity for them instead of the other. But if you don't have these, the other one will be fine. They will need more help from you though. So again, they might need some guidance at first on this guided practice. It is guided and that's fine. They have this data to work with, this table. And so they can see this example of, there's 4 people whose favorite pet is a cat. So they counted Starts at 0, goes 1, 2, 3, 4. I usually have students mark it here, and then they can color it in. Not just coloring as they go. I have them mark it, then color, because a lot of students will go a little too far. It's too late. They were using a crayon, and it gets a little tricky. And then have them fill in the rest of the data. And again, it's having them trace this too. That's important because it kind of shows them the process of creating their own and the importance of these labels on the X and the Y axis. And it's okay if they don't know X or Y axis, just it's part of labeling, and you can just call it a label. So then whenever they're finished creating this bar graph, they're going to be analyzing that graph and collecting what they learned from it. So how many students chose a cat, how many students chose a bird or a dog. And then coming down here, the bar graph is already done for them here, which is great. But now they need to know how to analyze that data. So what they are going to do is, of course, answer these questions, but some tricky parts for them might be when they get things like how many fewer or how many more, knowing that that's a comparison. So they'll need to collect 2 points of data and subtract and things like that. So, and for this one, how many students read or draw after school, that's going to be adding. So it's a bit more problem solving here. And then coming down to the problem solving, they're going to be creating their own bar graph, labels, everything. So again, if your child was wanting to do this first activity, or if you want to do the first activity, this is kind of what it would look like. But of course, in our notebooks, it'll look different, and that's okay. So having them fill this out is a great application of all their skills that they've learned. So if they can do this and analyze this data, that's a really good indicator that they understand bar graphs and how they work. So that's it for math today as far as the bar graph activities. And then of course there's the fluency practice and the fact monster if they don't have anyone to play with. But again, the big idea here is that they can use information to create bar graphs and then also look at bar graphs to collect information. So as long as they're getting that, that's fine. That's it for today. I hope you guys have a thoughtful Thursday, as we say at Graydon. Again, I'm not creating a video for Friday just because it's not academic and it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any questions on Friday, please email me and I can help you out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll still see them for the Zoom meeting on Friday, and I'll talk to you later.